and all present here. To start with, I would like to make a statement that the time has come that we start considering giving back to the nature. And I think that's what we all are here for. I welcome you all to Amplus Solar Mint EnergyScape Conclave. I'm Veronica, and I'll be your host for the evening. This Mint EnergyScape Conclave will focus on India's transition at a time when the energy markets have been buffeted by headwinds such as Ukraine war, a rally in international energy prices, and increasing geopolitical uncertainties. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to mention that if you look few years down the lane, not a lot of people would talk about sustainability, climate change, but the discussions on such topics have become imperative now, because I think all of us have understood that this is the only planet we've got. There is no planet B, and we should do everything to make our home a better place to be. And that's what we all are here for. Today, we have a series of illuminating discussions lined up for you, and I know all of you are excited for the same. But before we go ahead, Mint EnergyScape Conclave is brought to you in association with our presenting sponsor, Amplus Solar, and associate sponsor, Tri-Legal and Solar Energy Corporation of India Limited. I would also like to thank all of our esteemed guests, all speakers that have taken out their precious time to be here. I know we all have our busy schedules, but still you have taken out your time to be here. We can't wait to listen to your thought-provoking discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, during the conclave, don't forget to use the hashtags, #MintEnergyScape, and tag us @LiveMint on Twitter. To start with, ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite Mr. Shrutijit KK, Editor-in-Chief, Mint, for the welcome address. Let us welcome him with a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Veronica. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you to Mint EnergyScape. This is a summit that we have now been doing for quite a long time, and I was just reflecting on how the importance of energy and energy security in conversations both at home and abroad have attained tremendous importance over these years that we've been doing this event. So much so that today it's hard to think of anything else that dominates conversations around the world more than energy. We are now witnessing how nations that did not adequately secure their energy interests are suffering. We are seeing the advantages that nations with relatively stronger energy positions are, how they are benefiting. And there is a lot of cautionary tale in all of this for a country like ours with massive energy needs and also massive energy transition needs. I'm delighted that so many leading players so many leading personalities in our country's energy journey and in our quest to secure our energy security are here in this room with us this evening. Thank you all for joining us today. Our Honorable Union Minister for Power, New and Renewable Energy, who was to be the chief guest today and who was to join here to deliver the opening address due to a unforeseen last-minute change in his schedule. He couldn't join us and he conveys his regret. But we have so many leading lights of India's energy scape here this evening. I look forward to a really stimulating discussion and to learning about all the new trends and what is really going on in this space today by listening to all our experts. Two very power-packed panels this evening. Welcome all of you. I hope this evening is as enriching to all of you as I hope it's going to be for me. Thank you so much once again for joining us, and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shrutijit, for your words. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned that we have two power-packed panels lined up for you, and I'm sure there are a lot of learnings for all of you in store today. With this, we would like to move to our first panel discussion, but before that, we have a factoid for all of you. Well, the number says it all. We have set goals, and I'm sure we'll leave no stone to reach those goals. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we move to our first panel discussion of the evening. The topic for this discussion is India's energy transition pathways and its global impact. And we have with us our esteemed panelist. I would like to invite Mr. Pramod Agrawal, Chairman, Coal India Limited, on the stage. Can we welcome him with a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? With us, we have Mr. Pramod Agrawal, Ms. Suman Sharma, Managing Director, Solar Energy Corporation of India. Can we welcome ma'am with a huge round of applause? With us, we have Ms. Gauri Singh, Deputy Director General, International Renewable Energy Agency. Can we welcome ma'am with a huge round of applause? Mr. Sharad Pungalia, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Amplus Solar. Can we welcome sir with a huge round of applause? And with us we have Mr. Rajesh Kumar Srivastav, Chairman and Managing Director, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation. Let us welcome sir with a huge round of applause. And to moderate this discussion, I would like to invite Mr. Utpal Bhaskar, Chief of Bureau, Mint. Let us welcome Mr. Utpal with a huge round of applause. So, India's energy transition pathways and its global impact. I welcome all the panelists and our moderator. Over to you, Mr. Utpal.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Let me first take this opportunity to welcome this eminent panel here. There could not have been a better panel than this to discuss this. Each of you have played a very important role in this entire journey that India is undertaking. It's a very tough journey to start with, and as SK rightly mentioned. So, in fact, before I start with this, I would like to thank all of you. You guys have and some of you are coming in from Sharm el Sheikh, so I'm very happy to also inform our audience that we are going to hear that what the world thinks of us, and also where this transition, this journey, what kind of a heft have we garnered on the global stage. And so this is the format we'll follow. Every panelist would make an opening remark. And this is purely conversational, and that's the reason we love doing this as well. We would like to hear our panelists. There will be an opening remark, and then I'll try to just steer the conversation. Obviously, we are here to listen to what they have to say. I'm only as a facilitator. And also, then there will be a brief Q&A, and that's how this will progress on this. So let me ask ma'am, Gauri ma'am, what is the big message out there, and how have we, and you're just coming in from COP27, what does the world think of us, and where have we, how have we fared on this transition journey, so to say?
Thanks, Utpal, and thank you for having me here. It's great to be with this really distinguished audience and really great panelist with me. You know, I think what we need to see when we're talking about COP is that it was great in 2015 that we had the Paris Accord, but the COP subsequently have, have not delivered some big outcomes. But definitely, I think with India announcing its intent very clearly for 2030 of 500 gigawatts, this is something that's made waves last year and is continuing to make waves. Because it's not just the number. I mean, the number, of course, is huge because it creates market visibility for investors. But what's important also is the willingness of the country to step into the world space and say that we are going to now, apart from, of course, the huge market that India is, apart from our expertise in frugal engineering and bringing costs down, but now we are willing to also be the leaders in the policy space. And I think that's a really huge shift that we can see, that its role to create the dominant narrative is like never before. And I think if we can occupy that space, I think it's a great space to be in, apart from, of course, the many other things that India can give to the world on the pathway for energy transition. But clearly, for me, being a lead actor in the policy space is something which I think is a really good way forward.
Right. In fact, I will ask the same question to ma'am. You were there at COP27 as well.
Yes, I was.
And in fact, you are playing a very important role in this transition for India. In fact, I still remember the days of this record low tariffs for solar and wind. And SECI has played a very stellar role there. Your impressions about what the world thinks of us?
First of all, a customary thank you to you and to all, first for bringing all some major key stakeholders of India's energy sector. And about what the world think of us, basically this journey of energy transition towards which the world has been moving. Probably there are two nations, we all know. The market is there, the economy of scale is there. So we have played, we are playing, and we will continue to play a very, very important and vital role in this energy transition of the world. We have already, our nation, our Prime Minister, our government has already launched this LIFE mission. So that shows our commitment that it's not only the gigawatt level transactions or the PPAs or the PSAs we are talking about. We want to make renewable energy a part of the lifestyle of a common citizen. Because if we want to go closer to the environment, that is the requirement where the consumption pattern, the consumer behavior needs to be aligned with the renewable energy. So coming to the prices, as we all know, India is a very price-sensitive nation. And the reduction in the prices, of course, as you have rightly said, SECI has played a very important role. I would not say that only SECI. There are enabling policies of the government and very forward-looking policies. But now the prices are so low that it is definitely affordable for a common citizen also, for an industrialist also. Then hydrogen, I would like to mention that also, because our mission hydrogen, which will be out very shortly, that will give so much of impetus to renewable energy generation, because those targets which we are trying to go to set for ourselves will definitely need so much of renewable energy. So that will play a very important role.
Right. So in fact, you have very nicely put out the kind of lay of the land for us. I want to bring Pramod sir into the conversation. There is no one who mines coal as you do in the world. And also obviously we'll mine only what the resources are available to us. In fact, one of the messages which was pretty much prominent out there was that, yes, we want to go for this journey towards energy transition, but not at the cost of energy security. Also the war and also the message which is coming out from G20, which is just concluded in Bali as well. Coal India, in fact, gas is now being looked as an intermediate fuel as well. Coal gasification is something that you're planning in a big way. Please take us through where this journey through Coal India for India will be.
For gasification or coal journey?
The overall coal journey and the role of gasification as an intermediate fuel.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. See, for any country, affordable fuel is essential thing. And that should be abundant, available in the country. We have seen in the last couple of years what has happened to the countries who were dependent on other countries for their energy security. We cannot develop unless there's energy security is there. There are two things which are very critical for a nation. One is fuel security and another is food security. And this has to be ensured. If this would not have been ensured in this country, our journey in the last 2 years would have been very, very tough. Despite our increase in production, we have faced many problems in meeting the demand of the nation. So, to me, it seems, ultimately coal will be out of the scene and its role will get diminished. But for next decade and 1.5 decade or 2 decades, coal will be very critical for the India's energy security. Because our energy consumption is increasing tremendously. And as on today also, we are consuming only 1/3 of the energy of the world's average. I don't think that we will go to the level of China on some day, but because if we go to the China, then we will increase our consumption by 5 times what we are doing right now. But still, if we are to develop, our energy consumption will increase, and we have to tap all the resources available in the country to meet that demand. And in that, coal will definitely continue to be one of the cheapest resources. Solar power has given, and we have to go for solar power. I'm not saying that renewables are not something to be whisked away. If we have to develop as a country, perhaps at some point of time we will have to depend on solar, because we cannot meet the demand of the nation by coal or by fossil fuel alone. Just think, we are consuming 1 billion ton of coal in the country. China is consuming 5 billion ton. If we have to reach the China's level, then we have to increase our consumption by 4 times or 5 times. So if we increase our consumption by 5 times, what will happen to this nation and what will happen to the world? Perhaps the carbon emission from India itself will increase by 20% or 30% of the world. World carbon emission will increase by 20%. That is not something desirable. However, so coal and this both solar will play some role, renewables will play a role for maybe next 15 to 20 years. Solar, maybe the percentage of thermal energy will reduce in coming years, but in absolute terms, I am quite sure that for next 15 years at least it will increase. Thereafter, perhaps in absolute term, the energy consumption will decrease. But till that time, coal will be there and will play a significant role. Coming to the gasification, one must understand that viability of any project is very critical before you invest a lot of money in that. Gasification, what is the margin of the coal excavation, etc.? There is very small margin on which we operate. But in oil industries, etc., are operating at very high margin. I'm not talking about ONGC, I'm talking about, since you're looking at him. Any oil-producing nation are making huge margin in their production. Right. And so their opportunity to reduce their cost is huge, whereas our opportunity to reduce the cost is very minimal. We have not increased the price for last 5 years, and perhaps even if we increase, the cost will be still so high in most of our companies that we cannot reduce the coal supply to gasification. But one solution, if it is found that it is good, then gasification is one opportunity where we are looking at and we are thinking of investing. Gasification route will be very effective in reducing carbon emission. If we go along with that, we think of carbon sequestration as well. Unless that is done, it will not reduce the emissions significantly. Right. With that, it becomes slightly inefficient and not competitive in the market. Right. So one has to look how much coal gasification can help. Coal gasification can help us in securing security of certain chemicals, but it cannot give us the energy, it cannot meet the energy requirement of the country. Right.
In fact, I just wanted to, given that you have already talked about how for a oil and gas major, and at the scale which ONGC does stuff in this country is absolutely amazing. So obviously, there is this push towards, even in fact, ONGC is becoming very quickly a very strong player in the clean energy space as well. So would you like to add to it and your thoughts on this? Because if India has to absolutely make sure that our pledges are met, there are large PSU state-owned companies like yours who need to lead the path there.
So, thank you. Before I dwell upon the last part of the question, I will begin with some fundamentals on the transition as well.
Sure.
So, when we talk of energy transition, and like ma'am returning from Sharm el-Sheikh, COP26, COP27, and now something in ADIPEC, we know that at this juncture, the world looks at India in two aspects. Number one, its growth trajectory, its requirement of the energy, as well as the emission control which Mr. Pramod has discussed. From ONGC's point of view, from country's energy requirement point of view, I would say our leadership at the top level has been a visionary one in the sense understanding the trilemma along with the transition, energy access, affordability, and then comes sustainability. Security, of course, comes along with that. We all are doing our role in addressing those climate change initiatives, but giving the date as 2070 for net zero, I would say was a visionary. We knew that in India, transition is going to be a long one. And now the narrative is also based on certain mathematical models which we all believe in few years back. So many millions of EVs, so many millions of this, gigawatt of that, and switching over to transition in a very fast-paced way. Everything fallen flat. So why? Because being from the reservoir modeling side, which we do day in and day out, all of those models are nothing but mathematical models, non-unique solution with probability attached to each of those. And there is an uncertainty element with that. Notwithstanding that, in addressing those issues for reducing the emission, yes, we have our responsibility, and ONGC is doing its part. Recently, we have announced that ONGC would be going for a 500 megawatt kind of solar, apart from that, whatever is available. And then also, ONGC is also in discussion with Equinor, is moving on a mega project for CCUS.
For carbon capture,
and
sequestration.
Underground storage,
yeah.
Sequestration.
Right.
So what we are planning is something equivalent to 1.5 million tons per annum kind of sequestration, which is the available project now in Norway is going to be operationalized in 24. It's called Northern Lights. So the replica of that huge dimension, we are already in discussion with Niti Aayog.
You will do it here in India?
Yes, we will be doing it in India. Preliminary discussions, the modalities, the facilitation, the commercial aspects, because we know when we were talking about this transition journey, people have not yet discussed, but yeah, they are discussing in requirement of the capital for that.
Exactly.
For that, if I say 1 gigawatt of solar now costs around 6,000 crores. So in that aspect, if you have to go to even 10 gigawatt or 500 gigawatt within that year, and other aspects as well, carbon capture and sequestration, the cost of the carbon dioxide capture. So all those, the cost of that capital, all are other related issues which would be there.
So how much is this project going to cost you?
It's going to cost billions, let me say.
Did I hear billions?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's billions.
Right. Would you care to share a number?
No, I don't want to share.
That's the reporter in me coming out again.
The reason is why I will give you a reason.
Yeah.
When you look at the global scenario, somewhere around more than $100 per ton kind of is the cost for carbon dioxide. Now here, when we started working on this project, in fact, in carbon dioxide-based EOR, Enhanced Oil Recovery Project, so we had started with 58. Now the cost is going to go further down.
All right.
IOC R&D is also working on to bring this cost down to less than 35.
All right.
So all these aspects are
and
there,
also
and all other stakeholders are going
also
to
there's
share.
a scale
All
of
this,
us.
all this.
At the end of the
Very
day,
big scale.
anything which, in fact, that's one of the questions I would ask Gauri ma'am shortly, but also all these models, when we do it here, and then we also kind of give an example to the world that, see, here this is what it is happening, and perhaps this can be emulated elsewhere as well. One of the questions before coming to that I wanted to ask Sharad is that, so ma'am spoke about policy measures and also how to aid and help towards the transition. From someone, you are a part of a very large oil and gas group, which is Petronas. From where, and obviously you guys have businesses across the world, from where you guys operate in this Indian business environment, do you think enough has been done on the policy part which has been done on that count? And please do not be diplomatic. You can speak your mind. And so has enough been done? Also, please mind you, someone sitting on the next to you is the one who's going to buy a lot of electricity that you generate. So it's but the question still stands. Has enough been done from a policy perspective?
Okay. See, first of all, Utpal, we are very excited to be part of this journey. Okay. The journey on which India has started. Now, if you tell me that enough has been done, so I would say at least what I am seeing in last few years, certainly enough has been done, but more is required to be done. Okay. We have seen this entire, I've been in this sector for 20 years. I have seen the entire power sector going. One thing which I always observe is that we have always been followers. Okay. Whether it was the gas journey, the coal journey, whatever we did, we were always the follower. This is the first time when I am seeing our country playing on the front foot.
All right.
Okay. So green hydrogen, which ma'am also raised, certainly would play a major role in our goal towards, like, to 2070 goal of net zero. And we made the right noise at the right time. We were the first one to bring it out, everything. But now there is a lot of it which is required, okay, to make it affordable, the infrastructure required. For that, I'm hopeful that government would come out with more policies, more directives to make that happen.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that have been talked about. If my memory serves me right, PLI for electrolyzers is something which has been talked about. Green hydrogen, absolutely. We have with us Andre, who's a Brazilian ambassador to India. He's here. In fact, also a lot of stuff has been happening on ethanol as well. Brazil has taken a lead there. It's absolutely the example for the world to look at. One of the things which when you talked about the policy part of it, and I'll come to the electrolyzer part in a bit, because everyone is waiting for this green hydrogen mission. And in fact, I'm thinking there are more people here to listen to green hydrogen than anything else. But still, I wanted to pose this question to Gauri ma'am. Ma'am, when we talk about the policy part of it, and as Sharad rightly mentioned, this is for the first time we are playing on the front foot. When you look from where you are, and from your position where you look at India, how do we, because also policies also need to work in conjunction. They cannot be, and government also, while we keep on referring to the Indian government as one entity, there are also different parts of the government, and maybe one rule somewhere later on someone realizes, no, this rule is not something which was supposed to do it. So, but now obviously I'm sure there's given that NDA has been in power for a long time now, where do you see this policy push going forward?
So, Utpal, I think the shift that has taken place in this decade is, and I am speaking more from the renewables side. It's definitely renewables providing more electrons, more green electrons into the grid. It's, we estimate that by 2050, we are looking at an electrified world with almost 56 to 58% energy being carried by electrons. So obviously electricity is going to be a very major part of the energy transition. But what's really missing is the focus on the other end-use sectors, which are very slow-moving, and without them, there's going to be really no energy transition. And we talk about green hydrogen as being the the one lever that would shift at least the heavy industry and the hard-to-abate sector. Of course, that's something that we hope that it will do. But let me just take us back to, and because I'm talking policy and our leadership that we should be providing to the world on policy. In 2010, when we were putting the solar mission together, I know how much flack we faced from regulators. I know how much of lobbying there was for countries that came to us to not put local content. And, the feed-in tariff was the name of the game. When we moved into auctions, we also saw how rapidly, because of the kind of scale we are talking about, how rapidly the price came down. And now, no one talks about feed-in tariff. Vietnam talked about feed-in tariff. They did feed-in tariff for the wind sector, and they're not being able to really harness their potential because it's got their financials in a problem. So I think because of the kind of market that India operates in, the ability for us to give long-term vision, we have this huge opportunity to expand our investor base. Srivastav ji was talking about the need for bringing in capital. We obviously don't want to be looking at short-term capital flows like FIIs. We're looking at expanding our investor base. And that will only come if we are, we come up with a policy structure that's looking not just at the electrification piece of the energy transition, but looking across green steel, looking across
ammonia,
buildings, fertilizer, and bringing it all together.
Right.
And that's when the magic will really happen. And that's what is the leadership, we'd like the country to take onto the global stage.
Right, absolutely. So also, perhaps also one of the things which has happened is, and this is very interesting to observe because from a reporting standpoint, is that the differentiation between a molecule and an electron has fast vanished. So there was a time, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we have ONGC here. So no longer our oil and gas majors would like to be referred as an oil and gas company. You're an energy company today. So for example, if Coal India, at the end of the day, obviously given that you are also making sure that you are a part of this journey, there's some of the projects that you have been put out there. So that thing has been amply evident for everyone else around. I wanted to get ma'am into the conversation on the policy part of this. So while obviously the industry will always ask that you need to give us more, and given that SECI has a very important role to play in this entire journey, do you think, what are at least if you could share the big parts of this green hydrogen, this blockbuster, so to say, which is everyone awaits today?
You have given me a very wrong topic because I have so much to speak on this topic.
We would love to hear you, ma'am.
I might take a little bit more time because the government has done so many things which I would like to share here on this stage. Starting from the concern, because if you have to make green energy a part of your regular energy, of course, intermittency was one of the very big factor. Because as you rightly said, solar is there in the day, but what in the night? Or wind is in the evening, but then it is not there in the day or in the night. So realizing that government has already come out, SECI has itself issued the world's biggest battery storage tender, 1,000 megawatt hours. The tender is already closed. We are in the process of just issuing the letter of award. So that is one very big achievement which the government has contributed in this sector, which will help this just transition. It is not a transition. The transition has to be a just transition.
Of course. It has to be equitable as well. It cannot be that. Yeah.
So we are complementary. Rather, we are sitting here together also. So we are complementary to each other.
Right.
So that is one intervention. Then on the policy part, there are so many interventions, like I will not go into the details, like general network access rules have been recently notified. Then there is a uniform tariff that is under preparation. It might come out very soon also.
So one uniform tariff for...
yes, uniform tariff for, because this is the problem which is being faced. Sometimes the DISCOMs, the utilities who have signed the PPAs maybe 10 years back at the rate of 10 rupees or 8 rupees. So they say that we are at a early mover disadvantage.
Of course, why I came to the party early, so
now
why
it
should
is,
I be...
Now it is 2.5.
Yeah,
now it is 2.5. So whoever is... So we were the first one to move in the transition, and it is getting costly for us. So all these problems, the government has realized. Our minister, sir, unfortunately could not come here today, but he is the leading force for all these policy decisions. Then one thing you said, that different parts of the government, they need to work in tandem. I assure you, because this battery tender, SECI issued the tender, which is under the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy.
Right.
But everything, each and every line, comma, full stop, was discussed with Ministry of Power also.
Right.
So the government machinery is working in tandem to facilitate this transition. So that much I can assure you. And you see the prices, that the result is there for everybody to see, not only in India, but across the world. Our energy prices are almost average, if you say it, maybe 7 cents per unit, as compared to the world average of 14 cents. Our prices are maybe 1/3 of the European prices and 1/4 of the US prices.
Because you are also leveraging the scale which is for you to play with.
Economies of scale, then the policies, and then, as ma'am has also said, I would like to just say on that issue also, the investor confidence. So all these things, together with that payment security mechanism, which is very specific to, which is the USP of SECI. So all these things make this, this gives a very big boost to the investor confidence. And I think now the world knows that, okay, India, if you go and you invest, it's a different picture now what it used to be maybe a few years back, maybe 5, 8, 10 years back.
Right.
So all these is working in a very smooth and in a very positive way. So we are very hopeful that this transition will be very quick and just in India.
Very interesting
Sorry,
point.
I forgot to answer your green hydrogen question. Actually, I cannot answer because, because the mission is still not yet out, and it is
but
under...
at least give this room a sense about the ambition around it.
I can give you a sense in the way, because I had gone to Germany maybe I think 2 months back, and we were having a meeting with the businessmen, I think Hydrogen Europe, the association of manufacturers there. And they were also saying that we are looking at India with the big hopes for green hydrogen. And in Europe, with whomsoever we discussed, we got very positive vibes from them, that they all are looking at India, because in green hydrogen also 60 to 70% cost is the RE cost. And that is cheapest in India across the globe.
Right.
So that is a very clear-cut message, that the cheapest source is available here. So I can tell you that the world is looking, globally if you want to ask me, world is looking with great hopes towards India for supply of green hydrogen.
Right.
But technical details, or I cannot go into those
maybe we'll
details.
do a separate interview for that.
Maybe after the mission is out and it is approved by the cabinet.
Spoken like a true leader. In fact, also, I don't know whether many in this room are aware or not that Pramod sir and Gauri ma'am belong to the same cadre, which is MP. Pramod sir, I wanted to get your thoughts into this, because how difficult will it be a company like Coal India? You're not an ordinary PSU, and profit, as you mentioned, rightly mentioned, you haven't raised coal prices for the last 5 years, but there is a strategic intent behind you. So it's, while profit and loss also makes, obviously at the end of the day you operate a business, but how difficult will it be for a company like yours? You said that 10 to 15 years, the coal journey will be there, and obviously then the large part will become on the cleaner path. How difficult will it be for a Coal India? Because when large battleships change course, aircraft carriers take time to change course. It doesn't happen in very suddenly. How do you plan to accomplish that?
See, in coming years, maybe after 10 years, Coal India is going to face a lot of challenges. We produce about 80% of Indian coal, and we make profit only on our 10% of the coal. 90% of the coal that is supplied on FSA or long-term linkages, we don't make any money. So This year we could make a lot of profit despite all the constraints because on that 10% of the coal, we were getting a lot of premium. You would have heard in the auction, we were getting 300% premium or 400% premium. So that 10% or the 70, 80 million tons of the coal that we sell, we make that profit on that. If the demand reduces, that premium on that 10% coal will be not there. And that makes our life very challenging because the whole profit will get wiped out. But there are certain advantages in Coal India. Our production leverage is very high. If we increase our production by 10%, the cost of the production is almost 30% or 40% of means average cost. Because 50% of our cost is manpower cost, which remains constant. So the 30-40% of the average cost, we produce a lot of coal. We are concentrating on our bigger mines, where the production cost will be still lower and the production potential is very high. We have got one of the largest mines in Chhattisgarh. Gewra, Kusmunda and Dipka, all these three mines can contribute more than 200 million tons of the coal every year. And even larger than 300 million tons if we work properly. So the challenge on profit is there, but we have got means to counter that at least for next 10 to 15 years.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Are you telling us that given that the window for coal mining is going to be very small, you're trying to mine as much possible right now? Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm not saying that. We cannot mine out the coal that is there in India. What I am saying is, my production leverage is high, so even if the coal demand goes slightly low and the international market is slightly subdued, still Coal India will make a lot of profit. That's the point I'm trying to make. Because in coming 10 to 15 years, I foresee that the demand of the coal in absolute term will definitely increase. So the Coal India, for 15 years or 20 years, there is no challenge. But thereafter, one has to plan how we'll go. So Coal India, at some point of time, maybe right now we are also planning, we will have to enter in as energy space. As you say that, we won't like us called as coal company, rather we will like to be called as energy company. So we will have to look opportunities other ways. We have started, and we have started in solar. We have already in the process of installing about 500 megawatt of solar in power plants. And we target that in next 2 to 3 years, perhaps we will install 3 gigawatt. We have got the advantage with Coal India is we have got a lot of technical manpower. And the profit that we generate or the cash that we have, we can deploy in all these sectors, new sectors, and we can take a lot of risk even in, like green hydrogen. If Coal India tries and take risk in that new areas, perhaps it has got capacity to bear all those things.
So sorry, again interrupting you. You said green hydrogen. Will Coal India make a massive foray into it and the kind of cash on which you're sitting right now?
I don't know. We are working on that. But whether we will take a final call or not, that's still slightly far off. We are waiting for the policy to come. We will study the policy and perhaps thereafter we can decide on that. But we are there in the solar market. We will definitely go in a big way. Actually, what you were saying, that 500 gigawatts of power by 2030, that translates into 30 lakh crore rupees. No entity can, a single entity can. So there is a lot of space for everybody to invest. And Coal India, being a cash-rich company, they have got a lot of space to invest, and we can become energy companies in next 10 to 15 years. And that is the only way Coal India can survive.
Right. In fact, I would pose this to you, sir. In fact, as a large aircraft carrier like Coal India, similarly, ONGC is no less a biggie in that space. How do you propose to navigate these waters?
So the question of changing role from being recognized as a fossil fuel dominant kind of energy company rather than an integrated company, the journey has begun. The issues are also related with ESG, and then the issue of carbon tax, which ma'am probably have mentioned, is there.
There's a carbon trading mechanism which is being talked about now.
So now we already have those clean development CDM projects as well as carbon credits, a lot of that. OTPC, our gas project, generates a lot of that. And then right now when I said started with the transition, the one big word, equality,
Right.
is there to address in Indian context, it is there. Like Coal India, we also see that the fossil fuel, like coal, this oil and gas, are going to be there as an energy provided to Indian scenario at least for 20 years.
Right.
Not less than that. And in fact, the earlier predictions by anybody, if you look at till 2040, so now the role for oil and gas is going to increase from 30% to 38%, it is predicted that. So one model. But notwithstanding that, the changes in shape, if you look at the global players also, Total has changed, Equinor has changed, but other biggies like Exxon, they are in different quadrants.
Shell is here.
Yeah, Shell is here.
BP is looking out like anything.
We are there with Shell. Shell is also our partner, going to be our partner in CO2-based EOR. So what I meant was, certain biggies, they have still retained, if I can talk about Exxon, they still are oil and gas company only. So now the journey has begun. Each one will have its own journey and pathway to reach to that. And that is mostly from the point of view of creating a clean image, ESG reporting, as well as contributing. I am not saying it's a net zero, let us say energy neutrality. Whatever power madam said from grid, most of it should be through other renewable methods.
Right.
So we are beginning on that journey as well. And I already gave that carbon capture project.
In fact, you're also hand-holding the world majors to come in. So, for example, you mentioned Exxon. If I'm not wrong, Chevron is someone that you're trying to bring here as well. And
I think we have already signed an MOU with Chevron. And we are there with Exxon. We are working with Equinor. We also have an MOU with Equinor. And we are now working with, on some technical workshops has already taken place with Total as well.
Right.
So
this is all for carbon capture? And
no. Through and through for certain things for ENP project.
Right.
Exxon is right now for exploration. The reason being is, we know that the importance that oil and gas are going to be there in energy scenario in India. The large areas which have been opened by the government for exploration, lot of area in offshore was no-go area. The drive to aggressively pursue exploration in a faster time window is there. So we have to move fast. That's all.
Right.
So we are trying to cover a lot of trajectory in terms of exploring new basins, opening new basins. In the last 2 years, we have opened 2 new basins. One is Bengal, one is Vindhyans.
Right.
And right now we are working on 3 more. And similarly, 90,000 square kilometer area in offshore has just been opened. So we are working on translating that.
It's so fascinating. From gone are the days when these world majors used to say that this is a place where there is no oil or gas to be found, to the days when there are absolutely everyone is also lining up. Apart from oil and gas, they're also lining up to set up clean energy platforms in this country. Shell recently bought over Actis platform. So, and we see, and that's the reason I wanted to ask that question to you, as in, for someone like a Petronas, you're a state-owned company at the end of the day, but also, given there's a huge amount of revenue come from there, you also need to plan this for, it also has there's a sovereign interest involved there as well. And you do businesses in different parts of the world as Petronas. How has Indian experience been for you? Apart from the, obviously you said that something has been done, more needs to be done and stuff and all of that. But realistically speaking, have we absolutely crossed the debate of technology has already been settled? So it's not about that, oh, so much of green comes into the grid, then grid will become very uneven and stuff and all of that. There have been issues here and there, but larger Indian grid perhaps is the first, is the only grid anywhere in the world of such scale to be a one unified grid. Nowhere else in the world this is being tried anywhere else. But having said that, where do you rate India in the scheme of things for you?
Utpal, perhaps that answer would have to be given by someone from Petronas.
Okay.
I represent Amplus. But I can say one thing, like, so as far as Amplus is concerned, when Petronas came in, we were at 300 megawatts 3 years back. We are today about 1200 megawatts. So there is a good amount of growth they have seen. And the kind of business we have got, that has drawn a lot of interest from Petronas towards India. Like I was saying, and it's there in media, that we have already signed 2 MOUs for green hydrogen facility in India. Petronas
would you like to give a size of it at least?
It's 750 kPTA each.
I was talking in value terms. I just wanted this room to understand the kind of investment that numbers that you're talking about.
Well, it's there in the MOU has been signed, and it's a $1 billion project.
Right.
Each project is $1 billion.
Precisely my point. So that's the kind of numbers.
Yeah, but this is something they have done on their part, in the sense to show that, okay, we are interested. We understand India as a country provides us this opportunity, because one is we have got solar, we have got wind. Both are complementary in nature in terms of generation, which helps to a large extent to meet the RTC requirement, to top it up with the government policies, the storage, etc. The 100% RTC at an affordable rate is possible today in this country. Okay, so all those things are there. But now, a lot of other suppose, because the one problem with power sector, which we always know, is this concurrent nature, right? While at the central level, a lot of things are there. They have been promised, they have been notified. But we see the implementation at the state level still lagging behind. And maybe the government will have to, while we are awaiting for the new policy and regulations to come out. But from our side as a private developer, I can just request that government has to take cognizance of this fact. Because all these policies then otherwise would maybe remain on paper, because if we don't get those benefits ultimately at the state level.
Right. In fact, one of the things that you mentioned about the finance part of it as well, you talked about 30 lakh crore was the number. We have with us Mr. Devangan, who heads REC. Perhaps this is a second panel in which he'll be speaking, and obviously he's going to tell us, given that the kind of course, REC today sits on a huge loan book, but also given the kind of financing that needs to be done, maybe that's the question that we'll be asking him in the second panel. Ma'am, Gauri ma'am, I wanted to ask you this. So, given that this model that India has now created, the size of it, 163 gigawatt of renewable, obviously hydro is a part of it. Which are the, and at some level we also want this to showcase it to the world and say that perhaps this is the model you guys need to follow. And it has seen traction at least in the neighborhood. We have seen what some of our neighboring countries have been looking at. And also we have also been helping them as well. For example, there is something that we have been planning in Bangladesh as well and stuff. From an IRENA's point of view, how successful this model, obviously it is, and that's the reason why you're also talking about it, but which are the other geographies, apart from the projects such as an ISA and others that India has been championing for, which are the other geographies where you see this can be very easily emulated and kind of replicated?
So, Utpal, I think, when you talk about India, you're talking about a market size that's probably very few other countries can hope to achieve. And if you're also talking about the growth in demand, again, I think we're on a growth trajectory, as Pramod pointed out. And we were just talking about how we're looking at a year-on-year growth in demand, which is really surprising everyone. But, if I look at some of the assets that we have in terms of what has been created over the last decade, you have policy innovation and a huge potential to do policy innovation that the world can be looking at, and it can really change the narrative of how renewables and energy transition moves forward. You have some IPPs who started with, I remember in 2010, with 1 megawatt and are now talking gigawatts, and are also gearing up to move from renewables into green hydrogen and do end-to-end kind of investments. And they have the capacity to raise the low-cost capital that's required to bring in the low tariff on bids. You have a huge market with long-term visibility, which can bring in investors, and there's already a very good investor confidence in India. Now the whole issue is how do we leverage it, and because we have so much going for it within the country, I mean, I am seeing that very few IPPs are actually venturing out.
Right.
And, you know, I do hope to see them move out into the Asian market. The ASEAN market is set to grow also very dramatically. We are looking at huge growth in the interconnection of the grids there. And there's a lot of discussion going on how that can be created. But, you know, if you're talking about till 2030, you're also talking about 240 gigawatts of solar coming there.
Right.
So, you know, clearly what happens in India, how we actually get our act together to be able to deliver on promises which we have always delivered till now. You know, this is with a lot of expectation that the world is looking at how do we get our tariffs down, how do we create the investor confidence to bring in low-cost capital, and how do we also, you know, have IPPs who move into becoming energy companies to also step out and look at other regions. I think that's really the exciting part of what the rest of this decade will look like.
Right. In fact, it's a very interesting and a very gratifying thought as well, in the manner that India has always kept its commitment, and obviously the world looking at us in a manner that whatever we do, it will impact a lot of other things. While it will also impact big oil, it will impact West Asia, it will also impact the geopolitics of the world as well. In fact, one of the things that we are planning to do at the G20, India has just taken over, is that this International Biofuel Alliance, in fact, that's something that we want to do in a big way. I wanted to ask you this question, ma'am, about, are the days of this record low tariffs over? Are those, because there was a time I still remember we used to be up till 2 o'clock in the night. There was this kind of this rapid bidding happening, and obviously, and the bids used to go on for 2 days. So, and there was this kind of a, I don't know, maybe poker is not the right moniker for it, but who blinks first? That's kind of a thing which was happening at that point of time. But are the days of this record 2.43 and 2.44, are those days gone?
What a coincidence, our last tender also closed at 2 a.m. So you just mentioned 2 a.m. First thing is probably I think that the days of tariff, I don't know, because how the world economy moves and how the dependence of all of us on a particular source, one source is, we all know that. But one thing which I feel is that the days of pure vanilla and pure solar probably not gone, but not sustainable for a long time. So we did have 234, 236 in the last tariff also tranched in. But one thing which is a new development, see earlier, whatever renewable energy penetration was there in the energy mix, probably the main thrust, the main force behind that was the RPO obligation. Now we are trying to make it as a choice, not an obligation.
All right.
So that is something which will give what he has raised an issue that states sometimes are not on board with the center, and because of that, there is obviously...
He has not named states. I was waiting for that
no,
to happen.
I would also not. but these are genuine issues. I must admit that these are genuine issues, that because of this concurrent list, sometimes the issues do come up. To address that, there are two things we are trying to address from one move only. One is to address this, and second is to address this infirmity of this renewable energy source. Because I said that unless you give a firm and flexible power, we cannot either eliminate in any case we cannot, but we cannot even reduce that technical minimum of 55% or that base load of coal. If we want to reduce that, it is our duty to ensure that there is a firm and flexible dispatchable power. Dispatchable
round the clock.
Round the clock. So that is one thing which we have already brought in the market. First we got the hybrid of solar and wind. Then we got the peak power where you demand, the DISCOM demands from us that I want renewable energy in last evening 2 peak hours. So we'll give you tender for that, a customized tender. Then we got with this round the clock. First round the clock was only for the kind of base load kind of thing. Now the new product which we are bringing in the market is that, okay, you tell us what you want. So this has to be a demand-oriented market rather than a supply-oriented.
Right.
So we are trying to do this transition also, from RE, from fossil fuel to non-fossil fuel alongside. We also trying to do this transition that we give you, it's a customer-oriented market, consumer-oriented market.
Sure.
So that will solve this problem also, what you have referred, because now we are going to the utilities and we are already in discussion with the 3 state utilities, and we are designing tender exactly what they want. Their load for entire 1 year, entire next 1 year load, they will give us every 15 minutes block. Entire 365 days, every 15 minutes block, they will tell that this much I want in this 15 minutes, this much I want in this 15 minutes for the entire year. And we will design the tender and we will give them exactly what they want. Absolutely. So here that problem will not come. The states will get what they want. So there is no question of looking away later on. So that will also give lots of confidence to the investors also.
Right. In fact, I absolutely, some of the things that you have talked about, it's also very heartening because while enough land has been traversed and covered, there's a lot of stuff that you have talked about. This must be pretty much like manna for the industry, because there must be, these are the kind of cues that they have been looking at for a while now. Also, one of the things which I have also realized, and I'm sure this room knows this very well, is that coal is not going anywhere. The base load is going to be coal for a long time period as well. Obviously, when we talk about, there was a time when people used to talk about oil is available, but the price might be an issue. And the predictions of a $200 kind of an oil and stuff, a barrel as well. But the war has also made sure that there's a scramble for gas right now, wherein Europe has gone back to nuclear. As I was speaking to Mr. Razdan, he has been a very, is absolutely the voice who keeps it absolutely together, in the sense that, well, nuclear went off the radar for us for a while now. Europe has gone back to nuclear. He has served at Atomic Energy Commission as well, so he understands what he was telling us. In fact, what I've garnered from this discussion also is that, and to put it very simply, we have gone in that journey ahead. Lots is there to come, and I'm sure that many people sitting in this room would be very interested to also have offline conversation with some of you people on the dais here. Thanks a ton. Time is that we are absolutely out of time, but at the end of this, there's a short Q&A. There are microphones in the audience. I would suggest that if you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. And please ask a question, introduce yourself, your organization, and address it to the person on the dais. Please make it a question, not some sidewinder kind of a pontification. Are there microphones out there in the audience? Yeah, so is there anyone who would like to ask a question? If not, then I've got a couple more of my own. I will be using that opportunity for that. I do not see a hand anywhere, so I would absolutely, no, I see a hand somewhere. Yeah, there's yeah.
Good evening. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Monish Ahuja, and I represent Prespal as an organization. My question is specific to the biofuel, bioenergy part, which was alluded to. In the hard-to-abate sectors, we're talking about biomass to torrefaction to replacing coal. And similarly, the transportation, shipping, aviation, again, as a process wherein the biofuel needs to come. So if panelists who mentioned about the global biofuel in the G20 could allude to that, please.
So whom are you asking this question to?
There was a mention of the Global Biofuel Alliance on G20.
Yeah, in fact, that was me who mentioned this. So there's a second panel which is going to take on that subject. And we have with us His Excellency, the Brazilian Ambassador to India, Andre, here. And Brazil has done a lot of work in biofuel and ethanol. So perhaps you might want to pose that question to him. That was a remark which I made in passing about how India has been structuring towards its strategy there. Is there any other question?
Good evening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please, sir.
I'm from a finance company. My question is regarding the subsidy to the domestic suppliers. So many of our customers are not able to take the delivery of the project since the subsidy is not being released for domestic purpose till now.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you, but you need to be specific about which project are you talking about?
I am talking about the domestic project, solar projects.
So is that under which scheme of the government? Because there are different schemes. This is a SECI project that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think we'll be able to reply it.
No, you are talking about the VGF or what?
I'm talking about the domestic solar project at the rooftop or somewhere where they are putting up.
Rooftop you're talking
about? Yeah, rooftop.
The residential rooftop?
Yes, domestic.
That subsidy is given by Ministry
No, it is not yet coming in this financial year so far.
So probably because it goes to MNRE, MNRE gives us the money and tell us whom to give, we pass it on.
Yeah, so many
So maybe you can give me a specific reference, I can check it from the ministry.
Yeah, see, I'm from Gurgaon. So many people have already booked with so many suppliers like Amplus and Tata and others also. And they are not getting delivery because the supplier is saying that subsidy has not yet been
But that is again by the state DISCOM is the nodal agency.
Yes.
Yeah,
so that's a DISCOM.
It may be possible that in my case, maybe Haryana government is not able to give the specific information so far.
So, sir, thank you for that thought. And ma'am, thank you for, what we can also do is, perhaps we can also share the contact details of the Haryana DISCOM with you. Maybe you want to take it up with them.
If he can give me details, I will pass it on to Haryana DISCOM.
Yeah, that would be with the August officers of ma'am. It will surely help your case.
That much I can do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, panelists, for your erudition. Really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed moderating it. Thanks a lot to the audience. And with that, we bring this panel to a close. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I request all of you to please be on the stage for a while. I request all the panelists to be on the stage for a while. Thank you so much for such beautiful exchange of ideas. Once again, can we have a huge round of applause for all of them? It feels so great to learn so many advancements. Now I request Sir to please felicitate our esteemed speakers. I know this can go on and on, so much to discuss, so much to share. Thank you so much. Heartfelt gratitude to all of you. If we can hear a few more round of applauses for all of them. What a beautiful exchange of ideas, purely enlightening for all of us. I request you all to please be here for the group picture. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you for this amazing discussion. With this, we break for tea. And I request all of you to please be back here in 5 minutes. Yes, please be back here in 5 minutes. We have yet another power-packed discussion lined up for you. So, be right back here in 5 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, requesting you all to kindly settle down. Please take your seats. I hope you all enjoy your tea. Once again, a very, very warm welcome to Mint EnergyScape Conclave. I hope you all are having a great time. A lot of learnings are happening. Before we start, I would like to thank our presenting sponsor, Amplus Solar, and our associate sponsors, Tri-Legal and Solar Energy Corporation of India Limited. Also, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to use the hashtag #MintEnergyScape and @LiveMint on Twitter. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we move ahead, we've been talking about energy. Can someone tell me what's the most sustainable way of increasing energy in this hall? Well, I'll help you. A huge round of applause. Whenever we do clap, 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 we energize the environment. So it's the most sustainable way. So we will not lack today in applauding each one of us. एक बार जोरदार तालियां हो जाए. Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? I hope you all can see the shift in energy, right? Great. With this, we move ahead to the second discussion. But before that, we have a factoid, a very interesting factoid for you. Can we have the AV, please? Numbers are really great. We are certainly going in the right direction. With this, we move to our second panel discussion of the day. It is going to be really, really interesting one. The topic for this discussion is new and old energy sources in turbulent times. And with us, we have very esteemed list of panelists to shed the light on the same. And to start with, I would like to invite His Excellency Andre Arjona de Lago, Ambassador of Brazil to India. Can we welcome him with a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? With us, we have Mr. Vivek Kumar Devangan, Chairman and Managing Director, REC Limited. Welcome, sir, with a huge round of applause. With us, we have Mr. Neeraj Menon, Partner, Tri-Legal. Let's welcome, sir, with a huge round of applause. And to moderate this discussion, we have with us Mr. Utpal Bhaskar, Chief of Bureau, Mint. Let us welcome him with a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Can we have one big round of applause for all the panelists present here? They are really eminent personalities and they've taken out their time to be present here. Thank you so much. The topic of the discussion is new and old energy sources in turbulent times. Over to you, Mr. Utpal.
Thank you. In fact, we had a very interesting first session, and I'm sure this session is going to be absolutely informative in the manner that we so desire, in the sense that some of those people present in this panel are at the best at what they do. We have a diplomat, a very seasoned diplomat, who has seen a pretty large country undergo this transition. He has been, he's also an economist who understands what this at the world stage demands. We have with us Mr. Devangan, who heads one of the largest lenders to the, if I may say now, to the energy sector. Because obviously REC, when it started off, it was more like power driven, but also the several new vistas opened up. And then we also have with us Neeraj. Neeraj has been hand-holding a lot of these companies who have been navigating at least the Indian waters, and I'm very sure he has been, I'm very sure he's also been helping them in the neighborhood as well, which is the Indian neighborhood. Before we start, so this is the format that will follow. So there will be an opening remark by the panelists, and then obviously this is, and one of the reasons that we keep on hearing is also that our audience, also people present here and were watching online, is that they like this format, which is very conversational. And I would also want, if there is an issue that you guys believe that needs to be flagged, please feel free to do so. To start with, in fact, we just saw this G20 summit which got over, and where the Indian Prime Minister also spoke about that, he spoke about this importance of energy security. And he also spoke about that we should not we should not encourage any kind of restrictions on the supply of energy. And obviously, given that India has a huge energy demand, and this all comes in the backdrop of the Ukraine war as well. His Excellency, my first question to you. You have seen this transition happening in your economy. You also, you have been very close observer of what's happening here. In your view, how has this transition been unfolding for India? And is there anything in particular that has absolutely caught your attention?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be among so many recognized experts. Just for the public to know, I used to work with energy issues and climate change issues before coming to India. And so in the context of your question, I think that India has really a gigantic challenge in front of it, because the first obligation of a country is to have energy for its population. So you have to bring to your population an increase in the quality of life. So what happens is that the historic evolution of energy in India was obviously driven by necessity, much more than planning. You do what you have. So some countries would go like you went to coal, other countries, they go with what they have, because we had not a choice. I believe that now that India is the 5th economy in the world, is going to be the 3rd economy in the world soon, India now has choices, and the choices are being made, and they have been very clear, and the first session was very clear about that. So this is a bit what is surprising the world, because we have something very strong in common, Brazil and India, is that people underestimated us for decades. And now they're surprised by us. So it's very nice, it's a good evolution, but the fact is that it's going to be very exciting to see how a country that has the scale of India and that has the intelligence of India will make these choices. And they have to be India's choices. Mm-hmm. But obviously we are in a context in which we have international negotiations, we have international ideas, technologies, etc., that are evolving. So the world is watching India, there's no doubt about it, but I think that India will continue to surprise those who observe what you're going to do on your energy.
Right. In fact, on that thought, I'll pose this to Mr. Devangan. Sir, one of the, and this also emerged in the earlier panel discussion that we were having. So this transition journey that we have taken, there's a huge amount of ask on the financing part of it. And in fact, that is what I was alluding to in the earlier session as well, that now I have to pose this question to you. How equipped are we? One of the things which has been talked about is obviously we need to, what the West does, raising capital at a very low cost and then disbursing it for that kind of a trajectory to take place. In your view, how is, and there are two parts to my question, which is one, how is this transition progressing? And do we have the money for it?
Thank you, Utpal. Let me give you some certain figures where India stands vis-a-vis world. You had mentioned in the film that you had shown, India ranks 4th or 5th as far as solar power, wind power is concerned. But I would like to highlight that India is the 3rd largest electricity producer in the world after China and USA. India is also the 3rd largest consumer of electricity in the world after China and USA. But from the point of view of equity and justice, when we compare the per capita consumption of electricity or per capita emission, which is emerging from this use of energy, India, per capita consumption-wise, India consumes only 1/3 of the world average. India has to go a long way. India is still a developing country, as Honorable Prime Minister has given the vision that in next 25 years, by the year 2047, India has to become a developed nation. In this path for coming from developing to developed economy, our per capita emission, carbon emission will also increase. Because when you compare the developed economies indices, the per capita consumption electricity, per capita emission of carbon dioxide also increases. Since we do also have developmental aspiration when we compare with the developed countries, so our per capita emission is likely to increase, and since Honorable Prime Minister has declared that by the year 2070 we have to become net zero, we have next about 48 years span where we have to become net zero. But our energy peak is yet to happen. We have to reach this peak consumption of energy consumption as well as peak emission of the carbon emission. In this process, and let me tell you about the Glasgow declaration, when Honorable Prime Minister had given this Panchamrit announcement. With this, let me tell you the medium-term goal. By the year 2030, India has to have total installed capacity from non-fossil fuel sources about 500 gigawatt. Right now, we are at the level about 160 to 170, if we take into account under construction project. So another 350 gigawatt of installed capacity from non-fossil fuel sources has to come in the next 8 years.
Right.
For that, for example, for solar and wind energy, per megawatt cost say around 5 crore. So we have to have installed capacity from renewable energy sources by about 300 gigawatt, means 3 lakh megawatt. It will itself require 15 lakh crore.
15 trillion rupee.
Yeah.
Wow.
And other than that, since you know that capacity utilization factor of renewable energies is only 20-25%, we need to have storage solution. Storage solution will require another huge amount. It may be battery energy storage or pump storage projects or hydrogen fuel cell. That would also require huge investment. Then India has launched this hydrogen mission. We are in the process of finalizing our roadmap for becoming green hydrogen economy. For that also, for this, all this initiative, another 15 lakh crore would be required.
So we're talking about a 30 trillion rupee investment by 2030.
Yes. So
Where
that is the kind of volume we are looking for. And REC and the PFC, we are all committed to lend whatever is possible in this. Lot of investment opportunities are there for the international investors, for domestic investors.
Right.
And this is the sphere where we have to work for.
Right. So given this huge quantum of finances that need to be arranged, I'm sure you're also looking out. You're looking at partnerships elsewhere. You're looking at West. You're talking to other economies and countries as well. Please take us through, sir, what are the plans there? What exactly does this entail for you?
Like the investors for renewable energy sphere, they require dollar-denominated financing. So we are in the process of setting up our branch in Gift City.
Right.
So we'll be able to lend in dollar terms. That is one of the issues. Thereafter, we are in touch with the international financial institutions, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, KfW, and all other financial institutions. We'll be able to mobilize green financing at a much at a competitive rate. That is the area that we are looking for. Then this potential, when we are talking about enhancing the renewable energy capacity, that would also entail the requirement for transmission and distribution segment also.
Right.
That will also require a lot of huge investment.
So, in fact, no, I'll ask you in a supplementary to that, but I'll park it for a second. Neeraj, I wanted to come into this conversation. So, we have this transition pathway, but also there is, it's all about that, it's not that you can straight off jump, take this leap of faith, and then you can get into green. In fact, Mr. Devangan has been very closely involved. Not many people in this room might be aware of. One of the reasons why the lights were still burning for last year and this year as well, because coal was ensured that the coal fuel plants were running. So he's the man who was absolutely in the middle of things, in the thick of things, made sure that there was enough coal at our plants as well. And that was a dual responsibility that was also taken care of till now recently. Neeraj, I wanted to get you into this conversation primarily because in all this shift towards green, have we absolutely said, gone are the days of coal, gone are the days of, say, gas, which is still a cleaner fuel, but still it takes a lot of environmental concerns as well while drilling for gas as well?
I don't think so, and this is what we heard in the last panel as well, right, Utpal, that coal is here to stay. I mean, we have the third largest reserves of coal in the world, and you cannot just ignore that. And given this whole, question of energy security and making sure that we are not dependent on any other external factor for our needs being so important in this day and age, I don't see coal going anywhere. And keeping that aside, even if you look at what is happening globally, and a large part of it is evident in India as well, is that even today, and I was sharing this data with someone else earlier, that apparently there's close to $11 billion of subsidy that is given to fossil fuel industry on a daily basis globally. So if you take the global total amount in aggregate, and that's not a small number, $11 billion on a per day basis of subsidies that are still being provided to fossil fuel industry. So that clearly is going nowhere. But like we said, that eventually in the next 15, 20 years, we will see a phase out. But will that be 100%? Of course not. It will not be. Even if we work at the pace that we have set for ourselves, I don't see renewable energy capacity exceeding more than 40% of our energy mix by 2030. Right? Given how we are expecting our GDP growth, our demand growth. So clearly it has to be a symbiotic relationship. It has to work together. Of course, like the earlier panel we heard about carbon capture, CCUs, all of that will come in, but it will have to stay along with the base load.
Right. Andre, please.
I think that the issue of coal, like the issue of oil, etc., all these energies, they involve, first of all, lots of jobs. So this is a very important point, that you cannot make a transition and eliminate hundreds of thousands of jobs. That is quite obvious. Then there are some, obviously, special interests. It's sectors that pay lots of taxes to the government, and so some sectors appreciate that very much. But the truth is that we have solutions that are much closer than we imagine. So in the case of coal, for instance, one absolutely simple, cheap, and easy solution in India is pellets, biomass pellets. So biomass pellets solve many issues, including the issue of agricultural waste. And a biomass pellet can be used in a coal thermoelectric without changing a single screw in the thermoelectric. So you use this waste that is burnt uselessly, and you can transform it into a source of energy. Now, Are we going to substitute all coal with that? No. But in the transition of the years that are still left for coal thermoelectric, because let's be clear, the construction of new coal thermoelectrics is not going to happen. Yeah. So, but we have to use what we have to keep the jobs. I mean, there is an economic logic in all of that that is very important to take into consideration. But it's very surprising how little biomass pellets is being talked about in the coal context. And I don't know any country in the world that can benefit from it more than India.
Right. Sir, you were very closely associated with this planning process for our future plans. And obviously, it's a said thing that coal will remain our base load, and that's not going to change anytime soon. The point that Andre is making about this biomass pellets, I'm sure that some part of it is NTPC to start with, I believe, has been burning something. But what is the road ahead there? Because you have been very closely involved in this process.
Thank you, Andre, for highlighting that the use of biomass pellet. In fact, Ministry of Power has taken a proactive step in setting up a national mission on use of biomass pellet for thermal power plant. We have mandated that 7 to 10% biomass pellets could be co-fired with the coal. That will help in reduction in carbon footprint. But Mr. Monish Ahuja is there, who had spoken. He is one of the leading entrepreneur in the field of biomass pellet. There are issues pertaining to supply chain issues. We have not been able to resolve, but we are making sincere efforts that if we are able to utilize this biomass pellet, we'll be able to reduce carbon footprint of our coal-based power plant by about 10 to 20%.
Which is quite huge, given our base.
Yeah.
So what, our total installed capacity will be around 400 gigawatt, of which around coal would be, say, around...
coal is about 208 gigawatt.
Which is quite a number there, and wherein this, and obviously, given our commitments as well. And I also wanted to ask you this, what has been Brazil's experience been like? And given that, and Brazil's experience on both, on the biomass pellet count and also on the ethanol blending. That is something which is, India wants to go there, which was one of the statements made by our environment minister at COP27 as well. So what has been Brazil's experience there?
Look, Brazil, as I was mentioning before, was like India. We did what we could afford to do, because the financing is an essential dimension in our difficulties. In Brazil, we don't have coal. We have very little coal in the south of Brazil. So we invested immediately very heavily in hydro, because hydro is what was available and what we could do, etc. So somehow also the biofuels, the ethanol program came also because we didn't have oil. So in the 70s, when there was the first world crisis, Brazil depended, like India now, 85% of our oil was imported. So we immediately had to find a solution because we couldn't afford to buy oil. So necessity inspires, in general, our populations that are so resilient and brilliant. So the evolution of the ethanol and the bioenergy in Brazil was so phenomenal from a technological point of view that in recent years we discovered lots of oil. Now we are the 7th largest producer, the 7th largest exporter, and soon we're going to be the 5th largest exporter of oil. But we have increased our ethanol program because it makes so much economic sense that we continue to have it. So, by the way, this makes Brazil a very reliable, I think, exporter of oil while India needs it, because the transition obviously is not going to be immediate. But I think that the ethanol experience in Brazil is going to be being extremely useful in the discussions with India, because we have this very special circumstance. Brazil was the largest producer of sugar until recently. Now it's India, the largest producer. So we are the two countries that have the basis to start the ethanol program. And you have now the mandate, you have the decision of the Prime Minister, you have a commitment of many ministries, and this is advancing so quickly that the world is not noticing. A month ago, less than a month ago, there was a huge article in The Economist, which is a marvelous magazine, by the way, but they had a large article of pages and pages on the transition to renewables in India. They don't mention ethanol. They don't mention biofuel. It's extraordinary. So it is somehow, we have to understand that the reason why the others don't mention is that very few countries have the circumstances that India and Brazil have to produce the basic what is necessary for that ethanol. When we come to second generation ethanol, which we are already in, and the scale of India, because of the mandate, will be the largest scale in the world for the production of ethanol. Second generation, we use waste from all kinds of agriculture products in India. It's going to be fantastic for quality of air, etc., etc. You have to stop me because I'm a great enthusiast.
No, I really love your enthusiasm on the subject. Also, when you talked about both India and Brazil being poised to basically push ethanol as a global fuel, are you trying to suggest some kind of an alliance?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Very clearly, very clearly. And what we have done in the last 2 years is that we have put together our experts with Indian experts, because since we have this experience, we can clarify many things that other countries don't like to clarify. So, for instance, one of the statistics that impress more our Indian friends is the fact that we have more than 20% mix in the gasoline for more than 40 years. No car had the problem. It's a myth. So be sure of that. We import in Brazil, we produce 2.5 million cars a year, but we import like 250 or 300,000. The imported cars arrive in Brazil. We have a 27% mix ethanol in our gasoline. The imported cars don't need to have any adaptation. Again, another myth. Yeah. Then we have the flex fuel cars, which can use any amount of ethanol. 97% of the production of cars in Brazil is flex fuel, because the public likes it. Why? Because tomorrow the price of oil goes down, the price of sugar goes up, and our producers of sugar naturally will prefer to export sugar. And we go to... So that's the consumer is the great ally of this program.
Right, right. Mr. Devangan, talking about this, in fact, G20 is, obviously we have taken the mantleship. There is a huge plan which is underway. What do we expect on the count of energy security? Because, and obviously I want you to take us through that some of the things. One of the things that your friend, Mr. Puri, has talked about is this biofuel alliance. What are the other things that we expect from this G20 when the meetings take place?
Yeah, I would like to highlight this coincidence that this is the first time these 3 consecutive years the G20 would be hosted by developing countries. Yeah. This year it is hosted by Indonesia. Now from 1st December, India is going to take over the G20 leadership. Thereafter, we will be passing on the baton to Brazil. These 3 consecutive years, these developing countries would be leading G20 presidency. So, we have found one energy transition working group to carry out the global agenda for energy transition. There, we would like to highlight one nation, one grid. This one world, one earth, one grid.
So this global grid, so to say,
International Solar Alliance.
Right.
The Honorable Prime Minister, while launching International Solar Alliance, get highlighted. This is the concept for which time has come now. Then, of course, the commercial viability of the storage solution, that is really challenging. Then hydrogen solution. Hydrogen, although a lot of, recently USA has announced a subsidy of $3 per kg of hydrogen. Similar announcements are being made by other countries. there is huge potential for green ammonia because storage and transportation of hydrogen is a big challenge. So it will be easier to convert green hydrogen into green ammonia and then transport green ammonia. So these are the certain issues that would be deliberated in the energy transition working group. Then of course there is huge potential for offshore wind. The traditional wind has got capacity utilization factor about less than 25%. But offshore wind, the CEF can go up to 50%. Although the initial investment is high, but it gets compensated by higher capacity utilization.
And also the 7,600 kilometers of the coastlines that we have. So it's absolutely the kind of a number that we're talking about. I wanted to get Neeraj into this. Neeraj, when the investors look at us, and that's the question that I've asked earlier as well to the earlier panel, when the investors look at us, there's a policy certainty. In fact, gone are and this is what I pick up, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Also, there were issues in clean energy as well, but obviously there was this kind of a discussion between the center and the states, and there have been problems in states like in Andhra Pradesh and others, but those issues more or less have been, there's a rule of law, there is a sanctity of a contract, and that's kind of a thing which is here, which obviously attract investors. But from where you look at it, what are the major concerns right now? What are the major problem areas?
So, see, I'd like to split that response into two buckets. One being from a domestic capital perspective and one from a foreign capital, right?
Right.
So what we have seen is that the domestic capital is still gung-ho on greenfield, right? They're continuing to bid, they're continuing to develop. And by now they have sort of are well, I won't say accustomed, but they understand the risks very well. So they're able to plan for it, mitigate it to some extent, live with it, and so on. When it comes to foreign capital, what we have seen is that the risk perception is still there, it's still little high. And hence, we see more of their involvement in secondary, right? So M&As, where commissioned platforms, commissioned assets are being sold, where the construction risk, commission risk is taken care of, and you have some ongoing operational aspects.
And obviously, then you pay the premium for
Yeah,
it.
Right. So from a policy perspective and from a regulatory perspective, I think the last 4-5 years, we have seen tremendous initiative from the central government in actually identifying the areas where there was some sort of policy paralysis and coming in with some regulation or rule to plug that gap. I think the big question is implementation. So it is there on paper. The intent is very clear. But like someone I think on the earlier panel also mentioned, I think Sharad was mentioning that, when you come down to the ground level implementation, that's where most of the entities face challenges, because either it is an intent question or it is a question of just lack of understanding and just not, implementing what is written in the law. So, and of course the other side being that while our judiciary and our, regulators and judiciary are considered to be very fair and just when it comes to sort of hearing these matters and adjudicating on these disputes. What is happening is that because there is immense delay, and delay is not helping anyone, and that is sort of worsening the situation.
So in such a situation, how do you manage the risk? And how do you price it as well?
I think everything has a price, right? So you look at a risk and you see where it fits it in your overall financial model or your returns model, and you lay a price on it. So we have seen instances where, even risks like delayed payment from a particular SPV in a particular state, and the track record of that state, how many months they typically take to pay, and you do the math around it and you put a price on it and say, okay, this is the premium or this is the valuation adjustment that needs to be done because I'm going to get my money late. So that I think the financial advisors and the investors, investment bankers are...
And also the lawyers, then who also that kind of red flag.
We identify the risk.
All right. Excellency, I wanted to ask you this question. So while in the quest for oil, and obviously it wasn't there much, but then obviously then you had something called a Petrobras. Now, in fact, I was going through the export numbers, and as you very rightly pointed out, Brazil and Petrobras primarily because it's a state-owned company, you have become one of our preferred suppliers with just, if I'm not wrong, Indian Oil, which is one of the India's largest oil marketing company. They signed a long-term supply contract, and this time and age, generally people do not sign long-term contract. everyone wants to sell it in the spot. And that's the reason why we see the way that the crude oil prices behave as well. So Petrobras went ahead and Indian Oil, they went ahead and signed a long-term contract. How do you see this energy partnership between the two nations developing?
Yeah, there are many dimensions there. One of them is, as you know, the exploration of oil in Brazil is in deep sea. It's highly complex technologically, and Petrobras developed very interesting technologies. But it's a product that you have to make huge investments, and so there was a series of bids, and some Indian companies have won the bids to work together with Petrobras for the oil. So there is this dimension of the investment. But there is the other dimension that is quite interesting, is that if you look at the usual exporters of oil, they already have contracts, they already have their clients, they already have a tradition, they have, by the way, we are seeing the consequences now of the Ukraine war. In the case of Brazil, Brazil is a new player. And I believe that India was really the first country that started to talk to Brazil as a major exporter of oil. This, again, when I say that we are underestimated, it's very curious because I think everybody here reads the books of Daniel Yergin, who is the great expert in oil. But in his most recent book, which was last year, he publishes quite often, in his last book on the future of oil, Brazil is mentioned 3 times. It's unbelievable. We're going to be the 5th largest exporter and 5th largest producer in a few years. Mm-hmm. So that people have not yet incorporated the fact that Brazil is a player also in oil.
Right, right. And where else do you see this cooperation going, particularly in the field of energy? So there's ethanol is there. Obviously, you're talking about this grand alliance between these two great nations. Yeah. About, well, whether ethanol to be treated in the same manner as a barrel of crude oil. So that's the kind of pricing also
Yes, I think that that's one of the great dreams we have with the Indian government, is that if both Brazil and India start to produce extremely sustainable ethanol, because sugarcane ethanol is the most sustainable first generation ethanol, and then second generation is going to be even more sustainable. But we can have a commoditization of ethanol with 2 big producers like India and Brazil, because we're the 2 largest producers in the world. So I think this is going to go ahead much faster than people imagine, and in great part because of the conviction of the Indian government, because the mandates are very clear, and the mandates were anticipated. Last month, the first hybrid flex-fuel Toyota car made in Brazil arrived in India. What is that strange car? Flex-fuel, as you know, as I mentioned, is a car that can put any amount of ethanol. In Brazil, you only have 2 options in the pump, either 27% mix or 100% ethanol. So the flex-fuel, you put whatever you want. But then Toyota created the hybrid flex-fuel. The hybrid flex-fuel, so charges while it's using the ethanol. No? It is the most sustainable car in the world. Why? Because electric cars depend on the grid. If you have coal, you have a coal car. If you have gas, you have a gas car, etc., etc. No. So an electric car that emits as little as a hybrid flex-fuel has to come from a country that has 95% of renewable in its energy mix. So this is what is very exciting. And very quickly, after some discussions with the government and Brazilian business, the Indian government brought this car, and the tests are being done by the government to make sure that this is an option. And it is definitely an option.
Mr. Gadkari drives one, right?
Yes, there were many ministers involved, Minister Gadkari, Minister Puri, but the important thing is that the answer, and this is something that is a bit tricky, but is quite interesting, is that in Brazil, car makers are multinationals. So it's Volkswagen, it's Toyota, it's et cetera, et cetera. So all these car makers do flex fuel cars in Brazil and came with the Minister of Energy of Brazil 3 months ago to say it works, it's good, it's very good. But in the central of these companies, they don't favor ethanol, they don't favor flex fuel.
Are you saying that there is this big combine of big auto and big oil?
No, it's because there is obviously, if you like a conspiracy theory or whatever, but I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but it's not a conspiracy. It's simply a very objective thing, is that ethanol, flex fuel cars are ideal for Brazil and for India, but not for the others. So they are global companies, so they want solutions that can fit everybody. But what we are seeing is that the solutions that Brazil and India need are very similar.
Right, Neeraj, you wanted to add to
I just wanted to add to what Mr. Devangan also mentioned and His Excellency also mentioned, that in terms of capitalizing on these kind of resources that we have in India, I think is very critical from an energy security perspective for the country, because while we are pushing ahead with renewables, we're pushing ahead with storage, electric transport, all of that, one big elephant in the room is mineral security. The rare earth minerals that are required for these kind of technologies, we have none. Okay, we are not even in the top 11 or 12 countries that have access to these rare earth minerals, right? They are largely, spread across between China, Australia, US, and Congo, right? So we are going to be reliant on those countries, and those.
So basically, the oil will be just get
substituted by minerals. So there is apparently some moniker. Yeah, there is a moniker called, it's no longer going to be OPEC, it's going to be OMEC, Organization of Mineral Exporting Countries, because they are going to be the next big power given this entire, energy transition playing out across the globe. And hence, it's very important for us to look inwards and see what we already have and try to maximize that.
In fact, I would ask you to take that question on, because given that you have been involved in this kind of formulating this energy transition pathways for India, I'm very sure that we are aware about such concerns, right? So, sir, given that there is this, for example, lithium, there was this entire conversation which was happening around lithium, then we finally realized that the lithium triangle is which is in South America. So, this Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, the maximum number of lithium mines are already been acquired by the Chinese. Neeraj is a point about cobalt that is making in Congo, which also there is a Chinese miner there. So, sir, while I'm sure Indian government has already taken this and calibrated this into the modeling, sir, where do we, so is there going to be a concerted push for us, apart from obviously as you rightly mentioned about the biofuel, will we also be going out, so for example, the Khanij Ispat will go and acquire these mines overseas? Is that the mandate out there?
Yeah, let me state that every country has to work on its strength. Whatever our strengths are there, we have to work on that. And you rightly pointed out that, say, for battery energy storage, we cannot be over-dependent on lithium ion because we don't have the sources of lithium. So Government of India is acutely aware of these limitations. That's why Government of India has brought production-linked incentives. We are promoting Make in India initiatives, like for solar. Solar also, we have brought PLI scheme for giga-scale advanced chemistry cell. For that also, this production-linked incentive has been brought. So we have to work on our strengths, and we have to work in collaboration. One issue was that about the implementation issue that you had raised. I would like to highlight that India is one of the few G20 countries which has been able to adhere to its nationally determined contributions. We had committed in Paris, we had committed that we'll reduce our emission intensity by 33 to 35% of our GDP as compared to 2005 level.
Right.
We have already exceeded will exceed it by 45% by the year 2030. Similarly, with regard to having installed capacity from non-fossil fuel sources, renewable energy, we have exceeded the target. We had given commitment in Paris that our 40% installed capacity will come from renewable energy by the year 2030. We are on way to have about 50% of our installed capacity from renewable energy. So we'll have to work on a strength, and Government of India is acutely aware about our limitation, and we are also aware about our strength. We have to build on our strength, and wherever we are having weaknesses, we have to have concerted strategy. With regard to a specific issue that you raised about this, having tie-up for rare earth minerals, we are in the process of forming joint ventures like Kabil. You must have heard. So we are exploring. We had a meeting with the Energy Minister of Australia, where this joint venture proposal is being considered.
Which is the JV between?
This Kabil is there under Ministry of Mines.
Mines, yeah.
So they are exploring. So we, our other PSUs like NTPC and ONGC, they're also being roped in. Like NTPC and ONGC have formed joint venture to explore offshore wind. NTPC is also exploring possibility of formation of joint ventures for having these rare minerals abroad. We can have, we can acquire the mineral resources, or we can have this tie-up for supply of those.
Also, we can acquire these companies, sir, who have already done the hard part is the prospecting part.
Yeah.
Then obviously, then you need to pay a premium as well. But NTPC, the likes of NTPC and ONGCs, they have got huge cash on which they sit. So is that what the strategy going forward is going to be?
Yeah, that is one of the strategy. One of the
right.
All the strategies cannot be revealed.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop me from getting my headline out of this. But also, sir, one of the things that I wanted to ask you was that, sir, the DFI status, which has been talked about for both REC, PFC and IRIDA as well.
Yeah.
What's happening there, sir?
DFI status, this proposal has gone to Ministry of Finance, and we are sure that for a favorable consideration.
And sir, how will this help you? So, for example, today, what is the size of your loan book today? Just to give a sense to the room about.
So our loan book is about 4 lakh crore. REC and PFC is also of the similar. They are having a loan book about 3,90,000, about 4 lakh crore each.
Right,
about
so 8 lakh crore is the total
loan book is there. If we are given DFI status, we'll be able to offer competitive rate of loan for the green projects. That is the advantage, because the kind of energy transition which we are talking about, that I had already highlighted, that 15 lakh crore would be required for setting up renewable energy capacity itself. For this huge financing requirement, we need to have DFI status so that we are able to give competitive rates to the developers.
Right. And when do you see, sir, there's a kind of a decision being taken on this? As in, is this going to be announced in the budget? The budget, already the budget preparations are underway. And you know, as a publication, we cover budget like anyone, like better than anyone does. So, is this going to happen in the budget? Is that what the likelihood is?
We are quite hopeful. Ministry of Power has already recommended to Ministry of Finance.
Right. Right. Thank you for that. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to pose to His Excellency was that he's very gung-ho about ethanol and also this partnership between the two countries as well. And he's absolutely taken the charge on that count. We keep on reading about what, as in your engagements with the Indian government. What are the best things that you like about doing business with India on a government G2G level?
I think that is how complementary from a point of view as a Brazilian ambassador here is the complementarity that we can have between our countries. This is something that is really very impressive in the most diverse sectors. I believe that we have not exploited the bilateral relation as much as in recent years. We used to have very strong relations, you know, multilateral or with BRICS or whatever, but bilateral really to provoke this bridge between Brazilian institutions, Indian institutions, businessmen, etc. We are really I think, progressing enormously in that. And that brings enormous satisfaction. There is a constant positive surprise on both sides.
Right. In fact, on that count, let me take this opportunity to wish you all the best for the World Cup. And
very important.
In fact, it was a pretty interesting conversation. These are some of the subjects that we cover on a regular basis. Also, thank you for some of the headlines that we have got. And also, I'm very sure that there's so much that and I'm sure there are a lot of people sitting in this room are experts in their subject areas as well. So thanks a lot for your time. In fact, we have a quick Q&A, and there are already microphones in the audience. So if anyone wants to ask a question, please raise your hand, and the microphone will be given to you. Please introduce yourself, and then ask a question to anyone in this panel. So is there a question anywhere? So I see a hand there. Sir, please introduce yourself, and please tell the person that you're directing the question to. Yeah.
Yeah, this is B.M. Bhatia. I'm somehow connected with the lighting industry, which is also a part of the energy. Of course, we are consuming, I think, more than 20% energy. Thank you very much. I think the panelists had been telling us the excellent information. I must congratulate. But one basic question is that the ground realities. The ground realities, of course, in my lighting concern, I would like to sort of put it across all the panelists, and I would like to have a state reply. You see, Prime Minister of India, our respectable Prime Minister of India, you see, when he took over, that how we can save the energy. So he started initiating replacing all the conventional lighting into the LED, by virtue of which I think India has saved more than 50% of the energy. And you know that 1 watt saved is 1 watt generated, of course. But the ground reality is the center is making all the policies, like, for example, REC chairman, respectable gentleman is sitting here. We are making all the policies. They are going to the states, and ultimately the states are living on the hands of the local municipal corporation, which are implementing and all that. Like the gentleman said that delay in payments, whether the payment will be coming or not, the securities of the payment. So all these things, I don't want to go into the details, but I think the message has to go to the government of India that we are making excellent policies. Whatever I have heard, I think this is excellent. Within the next 10 years, we are going to have a lot of energy, new energy, everything. But ultimately, who is going to implement, and how we are going to implement, and how safely we are inviting the investors so that they are happy to come to India or to come to all the departments and invest happily.
So thank you for that question. In fact, I think this is directed towards Mr. Devangan. So would you like to take it?
Thank you, Bhatia ji, for highlighting the field level issues. I appreciate that this energy conservation effect through the Ujala scheme, wherein LED bulbs were replaced, the CFL was replaced by LED, and a lot of energy saving has happened. But you rightly pointed out that there was no perfect system of payment security, particularly from the urban local bodies and rural local bodies. So we are aware of the situation, and in fact, we have developed a strategy in consultation of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Ministry of Panchayati Raj, Rural Development, to evolve a payment security mechanism so that this lighting or the energy conservation efforts which have been implemented by urban local bodies or rural local bodies, their payments are ensured. So we have made a provision that any central government grant which will go to these urban local bodies or rural local bodies will give them notice that in case they are not able to pay for the equipment that have been placed for energy conservation measure, in the future the grants, suitable deduction would take place, and that's how we are planning to have this payment security mechanism for all the energy saving efforts which is being carried out.
Right, sir. So thank you for that. There's another hand there in the at the back left. Can you please get? Yeah, you already have a microphone, so please go ahead.
Sure, sir. Sir, I'm Nishit Srivastava from KFW. So my question is with reference to technology. From past 2-3 years, we are hearing a lot of technological advancements happening. Maybe 5 years before, we were talking about plain vanilla solar. Now we are talking about RTCs, wind, offshore winds, battery storage was the buzzword few years before. Now green hydrogen is the buzzword. Maybe after 2 years, there will be a new buzzword coming in. So with this change of technological evaluation happening, how do you see, even as a banker, I mean, REC is one of the leading bank, with reference to the investment aspect, even for the investors, they want, if they invest, they want to recoup the investment. And with this cycle, limited cycle, and the change of cycle, there is a confusion as well as a lot of options and opportunities coming in. So I just wanted to know what are your views onto it?
Thank you, Mr. Srivastava, for bringing out this technology aspect to this energy transition. In fact, this energy transition working group, which has been formed under G20, they have formed a special technology solution group to take care of these technological issues. I had spoken about this energy storage solution or green hydrogen, green ammonia, and offshore wind. There is need for having commercially viable solutions. For that, this solution will come from a breakthrough in the technology. A lot of efforts are going on, and we are pooling our resources, particularly among the G20 countries, and a special technology group has been formed to sort out these issues.
Right. Excellency, you wanted to add to it?
No, just on the continuation, as you mentioned, that we're going to have the presidency of the G20 after India, and we will continue to talk about ethanol. But when you mentioned this issue of technology, I want to stress something that is extremely important, I believe, is that since both our countries are very worried about being dependent from something and then moving to something that is a new kind of dependency. In the case of ethanol, which the entire cycle, the whole thing is completely under control in India. But there is also a dimension, and I have to tell you, I'm far from an expert, I'm an economist, so I don't know lots from the scientific point, but I asked some experts about it. And there's a fascinating dimension of ethanol, which is ethanol as an extraordinary way of transporting green hydrogen. You were mentioning how dangerous it is to stock and to transport green hydrogen. In Brazil, the technology that is being developed regarding green hydrogen is what is called the reform of ethanol into green hydrogen. So you transport it as ethanol and you reform when you need it. So even in this stage of green hydrogen, don't look at ethanol as something of the past and something that is a transition because we cannot afford others. Not at all. This is the basis for something that both Brazil and India can develop ad infinitum. And I think this is going to be one of the most exciting dimensions of our bilateral relations. And we're going to make everybody crazy during the G20 because we're going to talk so much about that.
Thank you, Excellency. Thanks for that. Thank you for the audience. And let me also take this opportunity to thank the panelists. Thank you for taking out time for this. And there will be a small felicitation.
Thank you so much. Can we have a huge round of applause for our esteemed panelists? Such an informative discussion, I must say. And with this, I will request Mr. Rutpal to kindly felicitate our esteemed speakers. Can we have a huge round of applause for all of this incredible exchange of ideas? Thank you all of you for sharing your thoughts with us through this discussion. We are very honored for your presence here. Thank you so much. I request all of you to kindly step forward for the group picture. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Once again, can we hear it for all of them? Also, thank you so much, Mr. Utpal. Very well moderated. Well, with this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of this marvelous conclave. I hope we all have learned a lot from this, and together we will make this world a better place to live by keeping ourselves more happier and healthier, and adapting more of the sustainable choices to having more of the sustainable choices. And I'm sure we all are working in the same direction together. And once again, can we have a huge round of applause for all of us present here? Thanking you all of you, you've taken out your precious time to be here, to be present here for this noble cause. Thank you once again to all of you. Once again, I would like to thank our presenting sponsors, Amplus Solar, and our associate partners, Tri-Legal and Solar Energy Corporation of India Limited. With this, I'm Veronica, signing off for the day. Please proceed for the dinner. Thank you.